Chapter 12, Part 4 of How I Found Livingstone. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Beth Ann. How I Found Livingstone: Travels, Adventures, and Discoveries in Central Africa, including 4 months' residence with Dr. Livingstone. By Sir Henry M. Stanley. Chapter 12, Part 4 Intercourse with Livingstone at Ujiji. Livingstone's own story of his journeys, his troubles, and disappointments. Livingstone admits the Nile sources have not been found, though he has traced the Lualaba through 7 degrees of latitude, flowing north, and, though he has not a particle of doubt of its being the Nile, not yet can the Nile question be said to be resolved and ended, for 2 reasons. 1. He has heard of the existence of 4 fountains, 2 of which gave birth to a river flowing north, Webb's River, or the Lualaba, and to a river flowing south, which is the Zambezi. He has repeatedly heard of these fountains from the natives. Several times he has been within 100 and 200 miles from them, but something always interposed to prevent his going to see them. According to those who have seen them, they rise on either side of a mound or level which contains no stones. Some have called it an ant hill. One of these fountains is said to be so large that a man standing on one side cannot be seen from the other. These fountains must be discovered, and their positions taken. The Doctor does not suppose them to be south of the feeders of Lake Bangweolo. In his letter to the Herald, he says, "These 4 full-grown gushing fountains, rising so near each other, and giving origin to 4 large rivers, answers in a certain degree to the description given of the unfathomable fountains of the Nile by the Secretary of Minerva in the city of Sais in Egypt, to the father of all travellers, Herodotus." For the information of such readers as may not have the original at hand, I append the following from Cary's translation of Herodotus. With respect to the sources of the Nile, no man of all the Egyptians, Libyans, or Grecians, with whom I have conversed, ever pretended to know anything, except the registrar of Minerva's treasury at Sais in Egypt. He, indeed, seemed to be trifling with me when he said he knew perfectly well, yet his account was as follows: that there are 2 mountains rising into a sharp peak, situated between the city of Syene in Thebais and Elephantine. The names of these mountains are the one Crophi, the other Mophi; and that the sources of the Nile, which are bottomless, flow from between these mountains, and that half of the water flows over Egypt and to the north, and the other half over Ethiopia and the south. The fountains of the Nile are bottomless, he said. Psammetichus, king of Egypt, proved by experiment. For, having caused a line to be twisted many thousand fathoms in length, he let it down, but could not find a bottom. Such, then, was the opinion the registrar gave, if indeed he spoke the real truth. Proving, in my opinion, that there are strong whirlpools and an eddy here, so that the water beating against the rocks, a sounding line, when let down, cannot reach the bottom. I was unable to learn anything more from anyone else, but this much I learnt by carrying my researches as far as possible, having gone and made my own observations as far as Elephantine, and beyond that observing information from hearsay. As one ascends the river above the city of Elephantine, the country is steep. Here, therefore, it is necessary to attach a rope on both sides of a boat, as one does with an ox and a plough, and so proceed. But if the rope should happen to break, the boat is carried away by the force of the stream. This kind of country lasts for a 4 days' passage, and the Nile here winds as much as the Meander. There are 12 shoné, which it is necessary to sail through in this manner, and after that you will come to a level plain where the Nile flows round an island. Its name is Tachamso. Ethiopians inhabit the country immediately above the Elephantine, and one half of the island; the other half is inhabited by Egyptians. Near to this island lies a vast lake, on the borders of which Ethiopian nomads dwell. After sailing through this lake you will come to the channel of the Nile, which flows into it. Then you will have to land. Near to this island lies a vast lake, on the border of which Ethiopian nomads dwell. After sailing through this lake you will come to the channel of the Nile, which flows into it. Then you will have to land, and travel 40 days by the side of the river, for sharp rocks rise in the Nile, and there are many sunken ones, through which it is not possible to navigate a boat. Having passed this country in the 40 days, you must go on board another boat, and sail for 12 days, and then you will arrive at a large city called Miro. This city is said to be the capital of all Ethiopia. The inhabitants worship no other gods than Jupiter and Bacchus, but these they honor with great magnificence. They have also an oracle of Jupiter, and they make war whenever that god bids them by an auricular warning, and against whatever country he bids them. Sailing from this city, you will arrive at the country of Automoli, in the space of time equal to that which took you in coming from Elephantine to the capital of the Ethiopians. These Automoli are called by the name of Asmak, which, in the language of Greece, signifies those that stand at the left hand of the king. These, to the number of 240,000 of the Egyptian war tribes, revolted to the Ethiopians on the following occasion. In the reign of King Psammetichus, garrisons were stationed at Elephantine against the Ethiopians, and another at the Pelusian Daphne against the Arabians and Syrians, and another at Myra against Libya. And even in my time garrisons of the Persians are stationed in the same places as they were in the time of Psammetichus, for they maintain guards at Elephantine and Daphne. Now, these Egyptians, after they had been on duty 3 years, were not relieved. Therefore, having consulted together and come to a unanimous resolution, they all revolted from Psammetichus, and went to Ethiopia. Psammetichus, hearing of this, pursued them, and when he overtook them he entreated them by many arguments, and adjured them not to forsake the gods of their fathers, and their children and wives. But one of them is reported to have uncovered, and to have said, that wheresoever these were, there they should find both children and wives. These men, when they arrived in Ethiopia, offered their services to the king of the Ethiopians, who made them the following recompense. There were certain Ethiopians disaffected towards him. These he bade them expel, and take possession of their land. By the settlement of these men among the Ethiopians became more civilized, and learned the manners of the Egyptians. Now, for a voyage and land journey of 4 months, the Nile is known, in addition to the parts of the stream that is in Egypt. For, upon computation, so many months are known to be spent by a person who travels from Elephantine to Automoli. This river flows from the west and the setting of the sun, but beyond this no one is able to speak with certainty, for the rest of the country is desert by reason of the excessive heat. But I have heard the following account from certain Cyrenians, who say that they went to the oracle of Ammon, and had a conversation with Etearchus, king of the Ammonians, and that, among other subjects, they happened to discourse about the Nile, that nobody knew its sources. Whereupon Etearchus said that certain Asmoneans once came to him. This nation is Libyan, and inhabits the Syrtis, and the country for no great distance eastward of the Syrtis; and that when these Asmoneans arrived, and were asked if they could give any further information touching the deserts of Libya, they answered that there were some daring youths amongst them, sons of powerful